$11. Two hungry 6-year-old twins. One exhausted woman covered in dirt. And one face I never expected to see again. The moment she looked up, my entire past slammed into me. Nathan. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Because the woman everyone else walked past without noticing used to be the girl I couldn't stop thinking about. The girl who laughed at me in high school. The girl who never gave me a second look. The girl who was now holding 2 starving children while trying not to fall apart. And the worst part? When I asked what happened to her, she told me to leave. I should introduce myself. My name is Nathan Foster. At 34 years old, I owned one of the largest logistics companies in New England. Financial magazines called me ruthless. Investors called me brilliant. Competitors called me dangerous. But standing on that sidewalk, none of that mattered. Because sitting in front of me was Isabel Clark. And she looked like life had spent years trying to destroy her. One of the twins was crying quietly. The other clung to Isabel's arm. Their clothes were worn. Their shoes were falling apart. And despite everything, Isabel was still trying to smile for them. "Sweetheart, it'll be okay," she whispered. Her voice cracked halfway through. The little girl looked up. "Mama, I'm hungry." That sentence hit me harder than any business loss I'd ever experienced. I looked at Isabel. She immediately looked away. Like she was ashamed. Like she didn't want me seeing her this way. What happened? Nothing. "Isabel." "Go away, Nathan." I didn't move. Neither did she. Traffic rushed past us. People walked around us. Nobody stopped. Nobody cared. But I couldn't leave. Not after what I was seeing. Not after hearing that little girl say she was hungry. Then I noticed something else. Isabel's hands. They were shaking. Not from fear. From exhaustion. The kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying too much for too long. I crouched down. Looked directly at her. "You're coming with me." "No." "Yes." "Nathan." "No." For the first time since I'd arrived, I interrupted her. "You have 2 children sitting on a sidewalk in 38-degree weather." I pointed gently toward the twins. "One of them is crying because she's hungry." My jaw tightened. "I'm not leaving you here." The older twin looked up at me. Suspicious. Careful. Protective. Exactly the way children look when the world has disappointed them too many times. "Mommy." Isabel closed her eyes. For a moment, I thought she'd refuse again. Then she looked at her daughters. And everything changed. Parents will endure almost anything for themselves. But not for their children. 7 minutes later my driver pulled up. And 20 minutes after that. The woman who once ignored me in high school was sitting in the back of my Rolls-Royce with 2 sleeping daughters in her arms. Neither of us spoke during the drive. But I kept glancing at her. Trying to understand. Trying to reconcile the image in front of me with the girl I remembered. Back then Isabel had been beautiful. Confident. Popular. The kind of person everyone noticed. Now, she looked broken. Not physically. Emotionally. Spiritually. Like she'd spent years fighting battles nobody could see. When we finally arrived at my estate, Isabel stared through the window. The mansion lights illuminated the driveway. The gardens. The fountains. Everything. She looked completely out of place. And somehow, that made me angry. Not at her. At whoever had put her in this situation. At whoever had failed her. At whoever had abandoned those little girls. The front door opened before we even reached it. Mrs. Thompson, my housekeeper, stepped outside. Then stopped. Her eyes immediately landed on the twins. Years of experience disappeared from her face. Only concern remained. "Mr. Foster? Prepare the east wing." She nodded. No questions. No judgment. Just action. The twins were already asleep. I carried one. Isabel carried the other. And together we walked into a house that was about to change all of our lives. I didn't know it yet. Neither did Isabel. But the moment those little girls crossed my front door, nothing was ever going to be the same again. The next morning I woke up at 5:42 a.m. I hadn't slept much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Isabel sitting on that sidewalk. Saw those children. Heard that little girl whisper she was hungry. By 6:30 I was sitting in my office staring at financial reports I wasn't actually reading. My mind kept drifting upstairs. Toward the guest wing. Toward Isabel. Toward questions I needed answered. At exactly 7:11 a.m., Mrs. Thompson knocked on my office door. They're awake. I stood immediately. Too quickly. Mrs. Thompson noticed. Fortunately, she was too polite to mention it. Breakfast had already been prepared. Fresh fruit. Pancakes. Eggs. Juice. Enough food for a small army. When Isabel entered the dining room with the twins, the girls froze. Their eyes widened. I'd seen billion-dollar investors look less shocked. The smaller twin stared at the table. Then stared at her mother. Then back at the table. Is all this for us? The question nearly destroyed me. Because no child should ever have to ask that. Yes. Mrs. Thompson smiled. All of it. The girls immediately sat down. And for the next 10 minutes, nobody spoke. Because they were too busy eating. Not quickly. Not greedily. Carefully. Like children who had learned food wasn't guaranteed. I watched silently. Every bite made me angrier. Because children don't end up like this by accident. Someone had failed them. Badly. After breakfast, Mrs. Thompson took the twins to the garden. The moment they disappeared, the atmosphere changed. Now it was just me and Isabel. And the truth. I leaned forward. What happened? She looked down. Silence. Then more silence. Finally, she started talking. And every word made me want to find the man responsible and put him through a wall. His name was Liam Hayes. I remembered him immediately. Golden boy. Star athlete. The guy who never heard the word no. The guy everyone admired. The guy I never trusted. We started dating after graduation. Her voice was distant. Detached. Like she was watching someone else's life. I got pregnant. I said nothing. Twins. Her eyes filled with tears. When I told him. She laughed bitterly. A horrible sound. He disappeared. My hands slowly closed into fists beneath the table. He knew. Yes. And left anyway? She nodded. I looked away. Because I was genuinely afraid of what my face might reveal. That's when I realized this story was far from over. Part 2. I stood up immediately. Before I broke something. Before I said exactly what I thought about Liam Hayes. Because if I started, I wasn't sure I'd stop. A living father. A healthy man. A man who knew he had daughters. And he had chosen to disappear. Not because he couldn't help. Because he didn't want to. I walked toward the window. My reflection stared back at me from the glass. Calm. Controlled. Professional. The same face that negotiated billion-dollar contracts. The same face investors trusted. But underneath? I was furious. Behind me, Isabel wiped her eyes. I'm sorry. I turned. What are you apologizing for? She looked down. For bringing this into your house. Ist her. Then laughed once. Not because it was funny. Because it was unbelievable. You think you need to apologize? She looked confused. I walked back toward the table. Pulled out a chair. Sat directly across from her. Isabel. She slowly raised her eyes. The man who abandoned you should apologize. I leaned forward. The man who abandoned his daughters should apologize. My voice hardened. The people who walked past you on that sidewalk should apologize. I shook my head. But you. I pointed toward the garden. Toward the twins. You kept those girls alive. Silence. I don't know how. More silence. But you did. Her lips trembled. And for the first time, I saw tears she had been fighting since yesterday. Not tears of shame. Tears of relief. The kind that appear when someone finally stops carrying the entire world alone. Then she broke. Not dramatically. Not loudly. Just quietly. Shoulders shaking. Face buried in her hands. Years of fear pouring out at once. I moved beside her. Didn't speak. Didn't offer advice. Just sat there. Sometimes people don't need solutions. Sometimes they need someone who stays. 20 minutes later she finally spoke. You were always kind. I looked at her. What? She laughed weakly. In high school. I blinked. That wasn't what I expected. I thought you barely knew I existed. She smiled sadly. Oh, I knew. That surprised me. Because back then, I had been invisible. At least I thought so. You did. Everyone knew. I frowned. Then why did you never talk to me? Her eyes dropped. Then she said something I never expected. Because I was stupid. For a second I didn't respond. She continued. You remember who I was? The answer was obvious. Beautiful. Popular. Cheerleader. Homecoming queen. The girl every guy wanted. She sighed. I spent my entire teenage life caring about the wrong things. Her fingers twisted together. I thought popularity mattered. Another laugh. Bitter this time. I thought attention mattered. Then she looked directly at me. And I ignored people who actually deserved it. Something shifted inside me. Not because she had finally noticed me. That part no longer mattered. But because I could hear genuine regret. And genuine regret is rare. Especially from people who have lost everything. A knock interrupted us. Mrs. Thompson appeared. The girls are asking for you. Instantly Isabel stood. Every trace of vulnerability disappeared. Mother mode. I watched her hurry toward the door. And for the first time, I understood exactly what kind of woman she really was. Not weak. Not broken. Not helpless. A survivor. The next few weeks changed everything. The twins slowly transformed. The first change was food. They stopped hiding snacks. The first time I noticed it, little Emma stuffed 3 dinner rolls into her pockets. She thought nobody saw. Mrs. Thompson did. So did I. Neither of us said anything. The next day she did it again. And the next. Then one morning she stopped. Because she finally believed there would be another meal. That realization hit me harder than I expected. Children shouldn't have to learn survival before they learn trust. But those girls had. Every day they became more comfortable. They laughed more, ran more, smiled more. And every time they did, I found myself smiling too. One afternoon I came home early from a meeting. The twins were in the backyard, playing tag, screaming with laughter. Isabel sat on a bench watching them. For the first time since I'd found her, she looked peaceful. Sunlight caught her hair. The wind moved softly across the garden. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. Then she looked up, caught me staring, and smiled. A real smile. My chest tightened. Dangerous. Very dangerous. Because I knew exactly what was happening. And I knew exactly why it was a bad idea. The problem was, my heart didn't care. 3 weeks later everything exploded. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning. No return address. No note. Just a thick cream-colored invitation. I opened it. And immediately recognized the name. Liam Hayes. My jaw tightened. Inside was an invitation to a charity gala. A very public charity gala. Hosted by one of the largest real estate groups in Boston. At the bottom was a handwritten note. Nathan. I recently learned Isabel, and the girls are staying with you. I would like the opportunity to meet my daughters. Publicly. As a family. Liam. I stared at the note. Then read it again. And again. The audacity. The absolute audacity. 10 years. Not one birthday. Not one phone call. Not one Christmas. Not $1. And now he wanted a public reunion? I almost laughed. Then I noticed something else. The event would be televised. Thousands attending. Millions watching online. My expression darkened. This wasn't about fatherhood. This was about image. Reputation. Public relations. Someone had discovered he abandoned his children. And now he wanted damage control. I was still holding the invitation when Isabel walked into the office. One look at my face. And she knew. What happened? I handed her the letter. She read silently. The color drained from her face. Then anger replaced it. Pure anger. He wants what? I watched her carefully. Not fear. Not sadness. Anger. Interesting. Very interesting. Because that meant she wasn't the same woman anymore. The old Isabel might have cried. This Isabel looked ready to throw something. He wants a family reunion. She laughed. A cold laugh. The kind that contains zero amusement. After 6 years? I nodded. She tossed the invitation onto my desk. Absolutely not. I expected relief. Instead, I felt concern. Because life is never that simple. Especially when rich men are involved. 3 days later my concern became reality. One of my investigators called. Mr. Foster. Tell me. A pause. Then the words I expected. Liam Hayes has been asking questions. I leaned back. What kind of questions? About the girls. Another pause. And about you. There it was. The real problem. He wasn't coming as a father. He was coming as a threat. And suddenly, the game had changed. Because if Liam wanted a fight, he was about to discover exactly why people in Boston were afraid of Nathan Foster. Part 3. The next morning, I doubled security around the estate. Not because I was afraid. Because I knew men like Liam Hayes. Men like him never believed consequences applied to them. They believed every door could be opened. Every person could be bought. Every mistake could be fixed with money and charm. Unfortunately for him, neither worked on me. At 8:17 a.m., my head of security walked into my office. We've got a problem. I set down my coffee. What kind of problem? He slid a tablet across my desk. A photo filled the screen. Liam. Standing outside Emma and Lily's elementary learning center. Watching. Just watching. But that was enough. My entire body went cold. When was this taken? Yesterday. My jaw clenched. Did he approach them? No. Speak to them? No. Follow them? Not directly. I looked up. Then why do I feel like you're not finished? The security chief hesitated. Then zoomed in. A second man appeared. Camera. Long lens. Professional photographer. My stomach dropped. Of course that's what this was. Not a father. A publicity campaign. I stood so quickly my chair rolled backward. Get every image. He nodded. Already working on it. Get every reporter he's contacted. Already happening. Get everything. His expression darkened. Understood. The moment he left, I called Isabel. She answered on the second ring. Nathan. I didn't waste time. Liam's been watching the girls. Silence. Then. What? Her voice cracked. Not with weakness. With fury. I explained everything. Every detail. By the time I finished, she wasn't speaking. That worried me more than yelling would have. Because quiet anger is dangerous. Very dangerous. Especially from someone who's spent years swallowing pain. I'm coming home. Her voice was calm. Too calm. Isabel. I'm coming home. The line disconnected. 2 hours later she stormed into my office. The twins were with Mrs. Thompson. Thankfully. Because the look on Isabel's face would have terrified them. She threw a magazine onto my desk. I looked down. And immediately understood. Celebrity Charity Preview. Liam Hayes on the cover. Smiling. Perfect suit. Perfect teeth. Perfect image. The headline made me sick. Boston entrepreneur prepares for family reunion with daughters. Family reunion. The nerve. The absolute nerve. He never met them. Isabel's voice shook. He doesn't know their birthdays. She pointed toward the article. He doesn't know Emma's favorite color. Another step forward. He doesn't know Lily still sleeps with a nightlight. Tears filled her eyes. He doesn't know Emma had pneumonia at 4. More tears. He doesn't know Lily cries when thunderstorms start. I stayed silent. Because she wasn't talking to me anymore. She was talking to 6 years of abandonment. He doesn't know them. The room fell silent. Then she whispered something that broke my heart. He never wanted them. I crossed the room. Stopped directly in front of her. Look at me. She didn't. Isabel. Slowly. Reluctantly. She raised her eyes. He didn't want responsibility. Her lips trembled. That's different. I continued. He didn't want sacrifice. A tear rolled down her cheek. He didn't want consequences. Another tear. But don't ever convince yourself he rejected those girls. I pointed toward the window. Toward the garden. Toward the twins. Because anyone who knows them loves them. Silence. Then another tear. And finally, a tiny nod. 3 days later, the first attack came. Not against Isabel. Against me. My assistant rushed into a board meeting. Pale. Nervous. Holding her phone. Sir. I immediately knew. What happened? She handed me the device. A social media post filled the screen. Posted by Liam Hayes. Over 2 million views already. The caption read, "Some people think money can replace family. I simply want a chance to know my daughters." I laughed. Actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was pathetic. The comments were exploding. Poor father. Heartbreaking. He deserves a chance. Children need their dad. I handed the phone back. Then smiled. My assistant looked confused. Sir. I stood. Adjusted my suit. And looked around the conference room. Cancel lunch. The directors exchanged nervous glances. Why? I smiled again. Because suddenly I understood the game. Liam wasn't fighting for custody. He wasn't fighting for his daughters. He was fighting for public opinion. And that was a battle he was about to lose. Badly. By 4 p.m., my media team finished their report. Every interview. Every article. Every public appearance. Liam had spent 6 years building an image. Family man. Community leader. Generous businessman. The problem? None of it was true. And unlike him, I had receipts. Lots of them. Hospital records. Unpaid child support requests. Certified letters returned unopened. Messages ignored. Birthday cards unanswered. Photographs. Dates. Evidence. Enough evidence to bury him. But I didn't release any of it. Not yet. Because I wasn't interested in winning quickly. I wanted him comfortable. Confident. Arrogant. I wanted him believing he was in control. Then, I'd pull the floor out from under him. That evening, I found Isabel sitting alone by the pool. The twins were asleep. The house was quiet. She stared across the water. Lost in thought. I sat beside her. For several minutes neither of us spoke. Then she asked the question I'd been expecting. What if he wins? I looked at her. What? What if people believe him? She swallowed hard. What if everyone thinks I'm keeping the girls away from their father? I leaned back, looked toward the stars, then laughed softly. What? I smiled. Do you know the first thing I learned in business? She shook her head. The loudest person in the room usually has the weakest position. She stared at me, confused. I continued. If Liam had truth on his side. I shrugged. He wouldn't need a publicity campaign. That got her attention. He'd just tell the truth. Silence. Then realization. Slowly, piece by piece, the fear disappeared from her face. Because she understood. Truth doesn't require acting. Truth doesn't require marketing. Truth doesn't require photographers hiding near schools. Truth simply exists. And Liam Hayes had spent 6 years running from it. A week later, the gala arrived. The same charity gala. The same public reunion. The same event Liam thought would repair his image. More than 2,000 guests attended. Hundreds of journalists. Television crews. Influencers. Politicians. Business leaders. Everyone who mattered in Boston. As my car pulled into the entrance, I looked at Isabel. Then at Emma. Then Lily. All three wore matching blue dresses. The twins looked nervous. Isabel looked ready for war. I smiled. Because for the first time, I wasn't worried. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't uncertain. Because Liam Hayes had no idea what was waiting inside that ballroom. And in less than 2 hours, the entire city was about to learn exactly what kind of man he really was. The ballroom contained 2,137 guests. I know the exact number because my security team counted every single one. 2,137 people. And not one of them knew they were about to witness a public execution. Not a physical one. A social one. A reputational one. The kind that hurts wealthy men far more than prison ever could. The chandeliers sparkled overhead. Crystal glasses reflected golden light. A live orchestra played softly near the stage. Everything looked perfect. which was exactly why Liam had chosen this event. He wanted a fairy tale, a redemption story, a public reunion, the devoted father reconnecting with his daughters, the audience ready to applaud, the cameras ready to capture tears, the sponsors ready to praise his character. Unfortunately for him, reality had other plans. Emma squeezed my hand. Nathan. I looked down. Her voice was barely above a whisper. What if he doesn't like us? For a moment, I couldn't speak, because no child should ever ask that question, especially not about a parent. I crouched beside her, then looked directly into her eyes. Sweetheart. She swallowed nervously. If he doesn't like you. I smiled. Then he's the stupidest man in Boston. A tiny laugh escaped her. Then another. A second later Lily joined in. The tension eased. Just enough. Then Isabel appeared beside them. Elegant. Confident. Beautiful. The blue dress fit perfectly. Her shoulders were straight. Her head held high. Nothing about her resembled the woman I found on that sidewalk. Nothing. And for the first time, everyone else noticed too. People stared, whispered, turned. Because beauty gets attention. But transformation? Transformation gets obsession. The four of us entered together. And immediately the room reacted. Journalists lifted cameras. Guests exchanged looks. Phones appeared. I could practically hear the questions forming. Is that her? That's Isabel? The homeless woman? The abandoned mother? She looks incredible. Interesting. Very interesting. Because public opinion was already shifting. And Liam hadn't even appeared yet. Then the crowd parted. There he was. Liam Hayes. Perfect tuxedo. Perfect smile. Perfect performance. He walked toward us slowly. Like a politician approaching voters. Every movement calculated. Every expression rehearsed. The cameras loved it. Of course they did. He stopped 10 feet away, then looked directly at the twins, and smiled. Emma. Lily. The girls immediately moved closer to Isabel. Instinct. Pure instinct. Children always know. Even when adults lie, children know. For one brief second, I saw panic flash across Liam's face, because this wasn't going according to plan. The daughters he expected to run into his arms didn't move. Didn't smile. Didn't react. Nothing. The silence became uncomfortable. Then Liam tried again. I'm your father. Emma looked at Lily. Lily looked at Emma. Then both girls looked at Isabel. Not him. Her. Their real parent. The person who had earned their trust. And the entire ballroom noticed. Every single person. The cameras captured everything. Liam noticed too. His smile weakened. Just slightly. But enough. Then Lily asked a question. One simple question. One devastating question. Where were you? Silence. Instant silence. The ballroom froze. The orchestra stopped. A waiter nearly dropped a tray. Because suddenly, the event wasn't scripted anymore. Now it was real. Liam blinked. What? Lily repeated herself. Where were you? No anger. No hostility. Just confusion. The innocent confusion of a child trying to understand abandonment. Mommy said fathers help protect families. She tilted her head. So where were you? Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. And for the first time all evening, Liam looked genuinely terrified. Because there is no public relations training for questions like that. No media coach. No prepared statement. No rehearsed answer. Only truth. And Liam didn't have one. The silence stretched. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. 15. An eternity. Finally he spoke. I had circumstances. The crowd visibly winced. Bad answer. Very bad answer. Emma frowned. What does that mean? Another silence. Liam opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Nothing. Because how exactly do you explain 6 years of abandonment? How do you justify missing birthdays? Christmas mornings? First days of school? Hospital visits? Nightmares? How? You don't. And everyone in that ballroom knew it. The cameras kept rolling. The journalists kept recording. The donors kept watching. And Liam kept sinking. Then Isabel stepped forward. Not angry. Not emotional. Calm. Dangerously calm. The kind of calm that comes from surviving things worse than public humiliation. You wanted a family reunion. Liam looked relieved. Finally. An adult conversation. A chance to regain control. Poor man. He had no idea what was coming. Yes. His smile returned. I think our daughters deserve. Our daughters? Isabel interrupted. The smile disappeared again. She continued. You've never paid for a birthday. Silence. You've never attended a school event. More silence. You've never bought a Christmas gift. The room grew quieter. You've never called. A reporter lowered her camera. Completely captivated. You've never visited. Another pause. You've never asked if they were healthy. Now nobody looked away. Nobody. Because truth is magnetic. And tonight, truth had finally arrived. Liam tried to recover. I was young. Wrong answer. The crowd reacted immediately. Subtle. But visible. Because everybody understood something. Being young explains mistakes. It doesn't explain 6 years. It doesn't explain disappearing. It doesn't explain choosing silence every single day. Then Isabel delivered the final blow. The one that changed everything. She reached into her purse, pulled out a thick folder, and handed it to the nearest reporter. The woman opened it, then froze. What is this? Isabel smiled softly. Every unanswered message. The reporter turned pages. Emails. Letters. Court filings. Medical bills. Photographs. Years of proof. Years of silence. Years of abandonment. One by one the documents spread. Reporter to reporter. Camera crew to camera crew. Phone to phone. Table to table. Like wildfire. And suddenly, the narrative died. The devoted father vanished. The victim disappeared. The image collapsed. Because evidence doesn't care about public relations. Evidence doesn't care about charm. Evidence doesn't care about money. Evidence only cares about facts. Liam looked around the ballroom and realized something horrifying. Nobody believed him anymore. Nobody. Not the reporters. Not the donors. Not the guests. Not even the cameras. The story was over. And he had lost. Completely. Then something unexpected happened. Emma stepped forward. The entire room watched. She looked up at Liam. Not with anger. Not with hatred. Just curiosity. One last question. Do you know my birthday? The silence that followed felt endless. Liam stared. Frozen. Because he didn't know. Of course he didn't know. And everyone knew he didn't know. Emma waited. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. Nothing. Then she nodded slowly. Like she'd finally received an answer. Not with words. With silence. She turned around. Walked directly back to Isabel. And took her mother's hand. The gesture lasted less than 2 seconds. But it ended everything. Because every person in that ballroom understood exactly what it meant. Family isn't biology. Family is who stays. Family is who sacrifices. Family is who shows up. And Liam Hayes had never shown up. The applause started from the back of the room. One person. Then another. Then 10. Then 50. Then hundreds. Not for Liam. For Isabel. For Emma. For Lily. For survival. For resilience. For truth. I looked at Isabel. Tears filled her eyes. Not tears of pain. Not anymore. Tears of freedom. Years of carrying shame that never belonged to her. Gone. Finally gone. She smiled at me. I smiled back. And in that moment, I realized the woman I rescued on a freezing sidewalk had never needed saving. She only needed someone to remind her who she was. The strongest people aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who get back up. Again. And again. And again. No matter how many times life knocks them down. That night the headlines spread across Boston. Then New England. Then the entire country. But none of that mattered. Because when the event ended, when the cameras left, when the reporters disappeared, Emma grabbed my hand. Lily grabbed the other. And Isabel walked beside me. Not behind me. Beside me. where she belonged. And for the first time in a very long time, all four of us felt like we were finally going home. Part 5. The next morning, I woke early, 5:16 a.m., feeling the weight of anticipation. The twins were asleep in their rooms, Isabel beside them. The house was silent, yet the air felt charged, as if the entire estate was waiting for what was to come. Breakfast was prepared, but none of us ate. Instead, we rehearsed silently. Isabel held the girls' hands, squeezing them gently, reminding them without words that they were safe. I watched them closely, my mind ticking over every possible scenario. At precisely 10:02 a.m., Liam Hayes arrived. He wasn't alone. Accompanying him was a public relations team, camera operators, and a local journalist who looked far too pleased to be documenting this family reunion. I opened the front door before he could knock. The twins peeked from behind Isabel, eyes wide. Liam's confident expression faltered for the first time. He was met not with open arms, but a quiet, controlled family who knew exactly what he had cost them. "Liam," I said smoothly, voice low but carrying across the entry hall. "Welcome to the Foster residence. You've missed a lot." He swallowed hard. I just wanted to see my daughters." Emma stepped forward. "Are you their father?" she asked plainly, staring him down. He nodded. "Yes." "Then why weren't you there?" Lily's question was soft, but it cut deeper than any accusation could. Liam opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing coherent came out. The room was silent. The PR cameras whirred, capturing every falter. Isabel stepped forward, her posture regal, calm, and commanding. "These girls," she said, glancing at the twins, "have survived, thrived, and been loved every single day in your absence. And if you think showing up now changes anything, you're mistaken." I watched Liam's color drain. His carefully constructed image was unraveling faster than any corporate board I'd ever dismantled. He wanted control. He wanted optics. He wanted to perform. Instead, he faced the truth. The twins didn't move closer to him. They stayed by Isabel. Emma glanced at me briefly, eyes shining with trust, then returned to Isabel's side. Lily mirrored her sister. I leaned toward Isabel, whispering, "Let them speak." She nodded subtly. The girls each took a breath and, in unison, asked questions only children could. Simple, devastating, and honest. "What have you done?" Emma asked. Lily followed. "Why didn't you care?" No publicist could have prepared him for this. No rehearsed statement would suffice. Liam stumbled, his words hollow, his excuses thin. He realized in that moment that this wasn't a reunion. It was judgment. And he was already guilty. Isabel gestured to the folders I had prepared. Every letter, every unanswered call, every abandoned milestone. The journalists leaned in, capturing every detail, but no one dared interrupt. The room absorbed the weight of the past 6 years. Every lie, every absence, every failure laid bare. And yet, through it all, the family remained intact. The twins, Isabel and I, we were united. Strong. Invincible. Then Isabel smiled. Not a fragile smile. Not one of tentative hope. A smile of victory, dignity, and empowerment. It radiated through the room, and everyone knew that no father absent for 6 years could reclaim authority over this family. The cameras caught it. The journalists wrote it. The guests whispered it. Liam Hayes stood frozen, defeated, exposed, not by us, but by the undeniable power of truth and survival. And as we walked through the ballroom together, hand in hand, I realized this was no longer about me saving Isabel. It was about witnessing the birth of a family who had already saved themselves. The past was gone. The future was ours. Every step, every look, every shared laugh confirmed it. Nothing, and no one, could make them invisible again. Because we had all found our strength, our worth, our family. And this time, there was no turning back. Part 6. I thought the story would end after the gala. I was wrong. Because humiliation doesn't change people. Consequências do. And Liam Hayes wasn't finished. Neither was I. 3 days after the gala, the first lawsuit arrived. Not against Isabel. Against me. I sat in my office staring at the legal documents. Defamation. Interference. Emotional damages. I actually laughed. My attorney looked confused. You're laughing. I tossed the papers onto the desk. He just publicly admitted he's desperate. My attorney smiled. That's one interpretation. It's the correct interpretation. Because strong people move forward. Weak people sue. Especially after losing. The lawsuit wasn't designed to win. It was designed to intimidate. To exhaust us. To force Isabel back into survival mode. To remind her that powerful men always find another way to hurt you. Unfortunately for Liam, he picked the wrong target. I built my company fighting people exactly like him. The lawsuit was dead within 48 hours. The judge dismissed most of it. The remaining claims were shredded by evidence. Every text, every letter, every witness, every document. Truth won again. And Liam lost again. But then something happened that none of us expected. Emma got sick. It started with a cough. Nothing serious. Then a fever. Then another fever. Then 103 degrees. At 2:11 a.m., Isabel burst into my room. Her face was white. Nathan. I was already out of bed. What happened? It's Emma. 5 minutes later we were speeding toward Boston Children's Hospital. Lily sat in the back seat crying. Isabel held Emma against her chest. The little girl's skin felt like fire. I drove faster. For the first time in years, I was terrified. Not the fear of losing money. Not the fear of failure. Real fear. The kind that squeezes your chest until breathing hurts. The doctors moved quickly. Tests. Blood work. Scans. Hours passed. The longest hours of my life. At 7:42 a.m., the pediatric specialist finally walked out. I stood immediately. Isabel did too. The doctor's expression softened. She's going to be okay. The relief hit so hard my knees nearly gave out. Beside me, Isabel started crying. Not quietly. Not carefully. The kind of crying that comes after holding your breath for too long. I pulled her into my arms. And for the first time, she didn't pull away. 3 days later Emma came home. Healthy. Smiling. Acting like nothing had happened. Children are incredible that way. The experience changed something between Isabel and me. No more pretending. No more avoiding. No more pretending we were only friends. Because people don't survive nights like that unchanged. One evening after the twins fell asleep, Isabel found me sitting on the terrace. The summer air was warm. The estate was quiet. She sat beside me. Close. Very close. Neither of us spoke for a while. Then she broke the silence. You love them. I looked toward the guest wing. Toward the rooms where Emma and Lily slept. Yes. The answer came instantly. Without hesitation. Without thought. Because it was true. She smiled softly. They love you too. That hit harder than I expected. Because she was right. The girls trusted me. Needed me. Looked for me. And somewhere along the way, I stopped imagining life without them. Another silence. Then Isabel whispered something that changed everything. You saved us. I turned toward her. No. She looked surprised. I shook my head. You saved them. I pointed upstairs. You carried them. Another pause. You protected them. More silence. You survived. Her eyes filled with tears. I leaned closer. I just opened a door. For a moment neither of us moved. The world seemed to stop. Then her hand found mine. Slowly. Carefully. Like she was afraid I'd disappear. I squeezed back. And suddenly, nothing else mattered. Not Liam. Not lawsuits. Not headlines. Not business. Just this. Just us. Then a small voice shattered the moment. Nathan. We both jumped. Lily stood in the doorway. Half asleep. Stuffed rabbit in hand. Looking completely unimpressed. I laughed. What are you doing awake? She rubbed her eyes. Then asked the most dangerous question imaginable. Are you going to marry Mommy? The silence was immediate. Absolute. Deadly. Isabel nearly choked. I stared. Lily stared back. Waiting. Patiently. Like this was a perfectly normal question. Then another voice appeared. Emma. Also awake. Also listening. I think he should. I looked at Isabel. Isabel looked at me. The twins looked at both of us. And suddenly, the most intimidating negotiation of my entire life had nothing to do with business. It involved two 6-year-old girls. And I had absolutely no idea what to say. Emma folded her arms. Lily nodded seriously. Then Emma delivered the final blow. You already act like our dad. Nobody spoke. Because nobody could. And deep down, all four of us knew something had just changed forever. Nobody spoke. Not me. Not Isabel. Not even Emma. Because sometimes a child says something so honest that every adult in the room becomes uncomfortable. You already act like our dad. The words hung in the air. Heavy. Impossible to ignore. Lily nodded immediately. Yeah. I looked at Isabel. Her cheeks had turned pink. Which was honestly adorable. And dangerous. Very dangerous. Because I suddenly found it impossible to look away. Then Emma ruined any chance of recovery. Mom likes you too. Emma. Isabel nearly died. The twins giggled. I laughed. For the first time in months. A real laugh. The kind that comes from happiness instead of relief. Eventually we got the girls back to bed. At least officially. I was fairly certain they stayed awake another hour discussing our future wedding. Children are terrifying. Especially smart ones. After the house became quiet again, Isabel and I returned to the terrace. Neither of us sat as close as before. Which somehow made everything worse. Because now we were both aware of it. Aware of each other. Aware of what the girls had said. Aware of what neither of us had been willing to admit. Finally Isabel broke first. They don't mean anything by it. I smiled. They absolutely mean something by it. She groaned. I laughed again. Then silence returned. Comfortable this time. Until she asked the question. Nathan. Yeah. Why did you help us? I looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman who had survived 6 years of hell. The woman who had protected 2 daughters completely alone. The woman who still somehow believed she needed a reason to be cared for. I answered honestly. At first. She nodded. I leaned back. Because your daughter said she was hungry. Her eyes immediately filled with emotion. I continued. No child should ever have to say that. Silence. Then. She asked softly. I smiled. Then I got to know you. That answer hit harder than I intended. Because it was true. Every word. Every bit of it. She looked away first. And that told me everything. The next month was peaceful. Almost suspiciously peaceful. No lawsuits. No reporters. No Liam. No drama. Which should have been a warning. Because life doesn't stay calm for long. Not in stories like ours. Not when unfinished people are involved. And Liam Hayes was very unfinished. The call came on a Thursday morning. My assistant appeared at my office door. Pale. Concerned. Holding a tablet. Immediately I knew. What happened? She handed it over. I looked. Then froze. A press conference. Live. Liam Hayes standing behind a podium. Dozens of cameras pointed at him. Thousands watching online. The headline below the video made my stomach drop. Businessman claims children are not his. The room went silent. My assistant watched carefully. Waiting. I replayed the video. Once. Twice. 3 times. Maybe I had misunderstood. Maybe I had heard wrong. I hadn't. Liam stood there looking directly into the cameras. And lying. I have serious concerns regarding paternity. Lie. I believe I may have been manipulated. Lie. I am requesting formal testing. Lie. Every word. A lie. And he knew it. Because according to Isabel, he had known about the pregnancy from day one. The bastard was trying to rewrite history. Again. Except this time. He was using 2 little girls as collateral damage. That was different. Very different. My office door burst open. Isabel. Someone had already shown her. Her face was white. Not angry. Not yet. Hurt. Which somehow made me angrier than rage ever could. He knows. Her voice cracked. He knows they're his. I stood immediately. I know. Tears filled her eyes. He was there. Another tear. He went to appointments. More tears. He heard their heartbeats. The room became silent. Because now the lie was even worse. Much worse. This wasn't uncertainty. This wasn't confusion. This was cruelty. Intentional cruelty. The kind designed to humiliate. To wound. To destroy. I walked around the desk. Took both her hands. And looked directly into her eyes. Listen to me. She nodded. Barely. He isn't attacking you. More tears. He isn't attacking the girls. I leaned closer. He's attacking reality. That got her attention. Because it was true. He wasn't questioning paternity. He was questioning facts. And facts are stubborn things. Especially when evidence exists. My phone rang. Head of legal. I answered immediately. Talk to me. His voice sounded amused. Actually amused. Interesting. You're going to enjoy this. That wasn't what I expected. What happened? A pause. Then. We found the documents. I froze. What documents? The lawyer laughed. The signed acknowledgement forms. Silence. Then realization. Then shock. Then satisfaction. Because suddenly, everything changed. Years ago, before disappearing, Liam Hayes had signed hospital paperwork acknowledging paternity. Official paperwork. Legal paperwork. Government paperwork. Documents with signatures. Dates. Witnesses. Everything. The idiot had literally signed proof that the twins were his. Then forgotten. I started smiling. Slowly. Dangerously. Across from me, Isabel noticed. What? I looked at her. Then handed her the phone. The lawyer explained. By the end, she was laughing through tears. Actual laughter. Because for the first time all day, the fear was gone. And in its place, something far more dangerous. Confidence. The next morning every major news outlet received copies. Every document. Every signature. Every page. Every lie exposed. By noon, Liam's press conference had become a national joke. By evening, memes appeared. By midnight, his own investors were asking questions. And for the first time since this war started, I saw genuine panic. Not fear of losing reputation. Fear of losing everything. Because the truth was finally catching up. And it was running faster than he could. What none of us knew was that Liam Hayes was about to make the biggest mistake of his life. And this time, the target wouldn't be Isabel. Or the twins. It would be me. And that mistake would change everything. The next morning, the house was calm. Too calm. The twins played quietly in the garden while Isabel prepared breakfast. I sipped coffee. I scanning the estate grounds. Something was coming. I could feel it. By 9:17 a.m., my assistant entered, holding a tablet with a grim expression. Nathan, Liam is making moves. I raised an eyebrow. Moves. She nodded. Public statements. He's claiming we're interfering with his parental rights. Social media is blowing up. I stood, heart rate steady, but mind racing. It was exactly what I had predicted. Liam Hayes was desperate. And desperation made people reckless. I called Isabel to me. She walked over cautiously, twins trailing behind her. What is it? She asked. I showed her the posts. Images of the twins at school, snippets of public appearances, captions spinning lies. He wanted to rewrite the story. Make himself the hero. Paint us as villains. Isabel's lips pressed together. And for a moment, she looked tiny, fragile. But then she straightened. We can't let him do this, she said, voice low but fierce. He has no right. I nodded. No. He doesn't. But now we have to play smart. We let him overextend. Let him believe he has power. Then we strike. Her eyes met mine. Something unspoken passed between us. A silent promise that we would not just protect our family. We would destroy anyone who threatened it. Hours later, I convened the legal team. Every document, every signature, every record we had meticulously collected was ready. We had undeniable proof of Liam Hayes' abandonment, and official acknowledgments of paternity that he'd foolishly signed and ignored. By evening, press releases were prepared, journalists briefed. The moment he made his next move, the evidence would be ready to drop. And when it did, the world would see the truth. That night, after the twins were asleep, Isabel and I sat on the terrace, the summer air cool against our skin. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Do you think he'll ever stop?" she whispered. I wrapped an arm around her. "Doesn't matter. He already lost. Everything he tries from now on is just him digging a deeper hole. And we're ready." She smiled faintly, but real this time. The kind of smile that comes from knowing the fight isn't over, but you're no longer afraid. As I looked at Isabel, the twins' laughter echoing faintly from upstairs, I realized something crucial. This family wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. Stronger, smarter, united. And whatever Liam Hayes tried next, he would find out the hard way. You never underestimate people who refuse to be invisible, who refuse to be powerless, and who protect the ones they love. Because by now, we were untouchable. And this time, nothing would ever threaten our family again. The attack came on a Monday, 7:43 a.m. I remember the exact time because that's when my phone exploded. Calls, messages, emails, notifications. Dozens. Then hundreds. My assistant burst into my office without knocking. Which she never did. Ever. "Nathan." One look at her face. I knew. What happened? She handed me the tablet. And for the first time in months, I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Liam Hayes wasn't attacking Isabel anymore. He wasn't attacking the twins. He was attacking me. The headline stretched across every major business publication. Nathan Foster accused of using his wealth to manipulate single mother. I stared. Then read it again. And again. Because surely nobody was stupid enough to believe this. Apparently, a lot of people were. The article painted me as a predator. A billionaire who rescued a vulnerable woman. A powerful businessman who inserted himself into a struggling family's life. A man allegedly using money to gain influence over children. The accusations were ridiculous. But they were dangerous. Because lies don't need to be true. They only need to spread. My jaw tightened. Across the desk, my legal team looked nervous. My PR director looked furious. Good. At least one of us had the correct reaction. Then the office door opened. Isabel. She had already seen it. Of course she had. Her eyes immediately found mine. "I'm sorry." I almost laughed. Again with the apologies. I stood. Walked around the desk. Stopped directly in front of her. Then gently lifted her chin. "Don't." She blinked. "This is because of me." "No." "Yes." "No." My voice hardened. "This is because Liam Hayes is losing." Silence. He can't beat the truth. More silence. So now he's trying to create a new story. That got her attention. Because it was true. This wasn't an attack. It was a distraction. The last move of a desperate man. And desperate men make mistakes. Big mistakes. The problem for Liam? I had spent my entire career waiting for people to make mistakes. By noon we discovered something interesting. Very interesting. The journalist who wrote the story. The anonymous source. The photographs. The witness statements. Every single piece traced back to the same place. Liam's PR firm. I leaned back in my chair. Smiling. Dangerously. Because suddenly, we weren't defending ourselves anymore. Now we were hunting. The next 48 hours were brutal. For Liam. Not us. My legal team released evidence. His emails. His payments. His instructions. Everything. The journalists turned. The news cycle flipped. And the same people who defended him last week started running from him. Fast. Very fast. Then came the investors. Because investors don't care about morality. They care about risk. And Liam Hayes had become radioactive. One company pulled funding. Then another. Then another. Within 72 hours. Millions disappeared. Then tens of millions. Then more. The empire started cracking. And once cracks appear, they spread. Always. A week later I received a call. Private number. I almost ignored it. Almost. Then curiosity won. "Nathan." The voice sounded exhausted. Broken. Defeated. "Liam." For several seconds neither of us spoke. Finally he sighed. "I want this to stop." I laughed. Actually laughed. Because the irony was unbelievable. You want this to stop? Another sigh. Please. Please. Interesting. Very interesting. Because men like Liam never say please. Until they lose. What exactly do you want? Silence. Then. I'll make a statement. I waited. I'll admit everything. More silence. I'll leave Isabel alone. Another pause. I'll disappear. For the first time, I didn't respond immediately, because he sounded genuine. Not remorseful. Not noble. Just exhausted. A man finally understanding consequences. Then I asked the only question that mattered. What about the girls? Silence. Long silence. Then. They deserve better than me. That answer surprised me, because for once, it wasn't a lie. The statement was released 3 days later. National media covered it. Every major outlet. Every network. Every publication. Liam Hayes admitted abandoning his daughters. Admitted lying. Admitted manipulating public opinion. Admitted everything. The fallout was immediate. Board positions vanished. Partnerships ended. Investors walked away. And for the first time in his life, nobody rescued him. Nobody. The world moved on. Exactly as it always does. 3 months later. Nobody talked about Liam Hayes anymore. Not really. The twins certainly didn't. Children have an incredible gift. They stop carrying things that adults drag around forever. One autumn afternoon I watched Emma and Lily race across the lawn. Leaves flying everywhere. Laughter echoing through the estate. Isabel stood beside me. Watching them. Smiling. Peaceful. Happy. Finally. Really happy. Then she slipped her hand into mine. Natural. Effortless. Like she'd been doing it forever. Maybe she should have been. For several minutes we watched the girls play. Then she spoke. Softly. Nathan. If I had never been sitting on that sidewalk. I looked at her. She smiled. Tiny. Beautiful. We probably never would have happened. I laughed. Probably not. She nodded. Then looked toward the twins. Funny. What? Her eyes shimmered. The worst day of my life. She squeezed my hand. Ended up becoming the best thing that ever happened to us. I looked at her. Then at the girls. Then back at her. And suddenly, I realized she was right. Because sometimes life destroys the wrong chapter. To make room for the right one. And ours? Ours was finally beginning. 6 months later. I stood in front of a mirror adjusting my tie. And I was nervous. Ridiculously nervous. Which made absolutely no sense. I had negotiated billion-dollar acquisitions. Testified before government committees. Faced hostile investors. Taken companies apart and rebuilt them. None of that scared me. But today? Today was different. Because today wasn't about business. Today was personal. A knock sounded on the door. Then it opened. Emma and Lily marched inside. Matching dresses. Matching smiles. Matching troublemaker expressions. I immediately knew something was coming. Nathan. Emma folded her arms. You're not allowed to cry. I blinked. What? Lily nodded seriously. Mommy says men cry at weddings. I laughed. Your mother told you that? Yep. Emma pointed a finger at me. So don't be embarrassing. I stared. Then laughed harder. Because somehow, the little girls who once asked if there would be enough food tomorrow, had become confident enough to threaten me before my own wedding. Life was funny like that. Very funny. A few minutes later the music started. The guests stood. And for the first time all morning, the room disappeared. Because Isabel appeared at the end of the aisle. And everything else stopped mattering. She looked incredible. Not because of the dress. Not because of the flowers. Not because of the venue. Because she looked free. Completely free. The woman walking toward me was not the woman I found on that freezing sidewalk. That woman had been surviving. This woman was living. And there is a difference. A huge difference. The twins walked ahead carrying flowers. The guests smiled. Some cried. Mrs. Thompson definitely cried. A lot. I pretended not to notice. When Isabel finally reached me, she smiled. The same smile she gave me the first night she truly trusted me. The same smile that slowly rebuilt my world. And suddenly, every difficult moment became worth it. The judge began speaking. I barely heard a word, because I couldn't stop looking at her. Neither of us could. Then came the vows. Simple, honest, real. No grand speeches. No dramatic promises. Just truth. The kind built through actions. Not words. When it was my turn, I looked directly into her eyes. I can't promise life will always be easy. Her eyes immediately filled with tears. I can't promise we'll never face hard days. A small laugh escaped her, because both of us knew better than anyone. Life could be brutal, but I can promise this. I squeezed her hands. You will never face those days alone again. The room went silent, and I saw Emma wipe her eyes. Then Lily. Then half the guests, including several people who claimed allergies. Liars. Every one of them. Then Isabel spoke, and somehow managed to destroy me emotionally. I spent years believing I wasn't enough. The room became completely silent. I thought I failed. A tear rolled down her cheek. I thought I was broken. More tears. I thought my daughters deserved better than me. She looked toward Emma and Lily, then back at me. But you taught me something. My chest tightened. You taught me that surviving isn't weakness. Another tear. It's strength. The room erupted into quiet sobs, including mine. So much for Emma's instructions. Then came the words. The two words that changed everything. Ido. I answered immediately. Ido. The applause exploded. The twins cheered louder than anyone. The guests stood. The music swelled. And for the first time in a very long time, everything felt right. Completely right. The reception lasted for hours. Laughter. Dancing. Stories. Family. Real family. Not the family you are born into. The family that chooses you. That night, after everyone left, after the music ended, after the lights dimmed, I found Emma and Lily asleep together on a couch, still holding tiny flower baskets. I smiled, then carefully carried Emma upstairs. Isabel carried Lily. Together. As a family. When we tucked them into bed, Emma opened one eye, half asleep. Dad. The word hit me like a freight train. For a second I couldn't breathe, because she had never called me that before. Not once. I looked at her. Yes, sweetheart. She smiled. Tiny. Sleepy. Safe. Love you. Then she immediately fell asleep again. Like she'd just casually changed my entire life. I stood there frozen. Unable to move. Unable to speak. Beside me, Isabel squeezed my hand. And I realized something. The greatest moment of my life wasn't building a company. It wasn't making money. It wasn't success. It wasn't winning. It was this. A little girl feeling safe enough to call me dad. Because in the end, the things that matter most cannot be bought. They cannot be earned through power. They cannot be negotiated. They are built. Day by day. Choice by choice. Love by love. And standing there in that quiet room, watching our daughters sleep, holding the woman I loved, I finally understood something. The best things in life don't arrive when everything goes right. Sometimes, they arrive after everything falls apart. Because $11, a freezing sidewalk, 2 hungry little girls, and 1 woman trying not to break, had led me here, to the life I never knew I needed, to the family I never knew I was missing, to the love that changed everything. And this time, there was no more surviving, only living. The end.